All right. Hello there, Stacey.
Hello. How are you, Georgie?
Fine, thanks. And you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled.
You're very welcome. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we see each other online
Yes.
on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, but it's actually the first time that we've met. And so I was really pleased when you got in touch, and in response to, we sent an email out, didn't we? Just saying,
Yes.
does anybody have a recovery story that they'd like to share? Sometimes it's
Yes.
nice to do that, just put it out to the followers and see who responds. And you're the first to respond. So,
Oh, wow. I
yeah.
just jumped on that. I thought she'll probably get 500 responses, but I'll try anyways.
Not quite that many. No, but it's
So
always
thank
nice.
you.
It's always nice. And, sometimes we have some of our practitioners who have gone through their own recovery journey before they do our SERPA training.
Yes.
And I know you're working as a mind-body coach now as well, so we'll come on to
Yes.
that later on. And it's always nice to see that. And I think it helps people that we're working with to know that we understand that we've been there and using this whole understanding in our own lives, because I know you'll agree with this, Stacey, this is more a personal development program, isn't it, rather than just a course to get rid of your pain or a tool. Let's use
Right.
this tool to get rid of or these tools to get rid of our pain. It's not about that. There's so
No,
much
and it starts out like that, right? Because anybody in chronic pain or chronic symptoms is desperate to get any kind of relief. And then as you go along this mind body journey and learn these tools, at least for me, and I think I've seen others comment, that you start to discover all these things about yourself and your
Yes.
personality. And I used to get kind of mad in the beginning of my journey when I would read, oh, pain was just like the littlest part. And, I just discovered so much about myself and got all this growth. And I thought, well, that's great for you. I just want to get rid of the pain.
Absolutely.
And
And
it
that's it,
ends
isn't
up,
it? People want to get rid of the pain, and that whole mindset and understanding needs to change.
yeah.
Well, you certainly had loads of experience with being somebody who experienced pain. So this is why you're here today. And I just want to say hello to people who are listening so far. It's obviously being recorded, so we'll have people listening in afterwards as well. And it'll also go on our YouTube channel so people can listen to it moving forward as well. And so, if anybody who's listening, please do pop in the comments box. Just tell us who's there, say hello, and then as we're going along, if you've got any questions to ask Stacey or myself, then please do post in the comments box. But for now, Stacey, I know your journey mainly started around 2003, and you had a long, long few years of struggle. So do you want to give you an idea, or everybody an idea, of what things were like to begin with? What was your life like before?
Before it was I just felt like I was going all the time. I was super active. I worked full time. I was in marketing and advertising at the time. And I was a gym rat, loved fitness, was in the gym once or twice a day. So that was just kind of my active life, working and working out, and traveling with my husband, my fiance at the time, just enjoying life and not knowing anything different. Before it changed suddenly.
Absolutely. So when did it change? How did it change?
Yes, it literally was overnight. For me, I woke up one morning and it felt very flu-like. And I remember just feeling like, oh, I have like mono or the flu. And I just went from a very active lifestyle to suddenly being housebound, stuck on the couch. It just seemed like 20 symptoms came in at once, where lots of aches and pains, extreme fatigue. It literally just felt like I got hit by a truck. And as many know that are on this journey or have gone through it, the devastation that comes with kind of the grief that comes with what happened to my prior life, as you start to try to deal with and navigate a bunch of symptoms that just are so foreign to you.
Absolutely. So it sounds like it really was very sudden. And did it get worse, or did it come on full blown really strongly initially?
Yeah, it came on full blown. I remember specifically in the beginning, because we lived in a multi-level house, in those beginning months of how difficult it was, especially in the morning, to just get my joints to feel limber and to go down the stairs. And that was really frightening, because I remember thinking, I just feel like I'm 80 and I don't understand what's going on. And then, of course, the doctor to doctor, like, hey, can anybody give me any insight? And at first we thought it was mono, because I'd had it in the past.
Right.
And just, doctor to doctor, a bunch of tests. And finally, about 4 months after that initial sickness came on, I received the chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia diagnosis, which I think can be fairly soon for people into that journey, because I've heard it can take a really long time for people to get diagnosed. But so I don't know if that's lucky or not, but we can talk about the fact that I never really bought into those labels, because I knew there was something causing those diagnoses or labels, if that makes sense. Like, something could be fixed. It wasn't that I was just broken and had to live that way. I just never accepted that.
So you always believed that you could be fixed?
I did. I always had this inherent belief that there was a way out. I didn't know how to get out until, 18 years into it. But I always was angered by the diagnoses and doctors saying, well, you're just going to have to try to manage this. And we're just going to have to try to see if these meds work and try to do a little bit of activity. And you're just going to have to deal with that. And I just remember being so angry with those words from the doctor. And we know what those words can do to our beliefs and build up limiting beliefs that we're broken.
Yes. And then we lose hope.
Right.
And that really doesn't help at all, does it?
Exactly. It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah. I just want to say hello. We've had Susie and Linda and Trace and Joy. Joy, who's on a beer run in Belgium.
Oh, wow.
Resting in the hotel prior to hitting the beer bars.
How fun is that?
I hope you're having fun. And Trace is from Canada. Great.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Trace. Susie, Linda.
And we've got
Joy.
Okay, so Susie says, did you consult a psychotherapist at the outset?
Not at the outset. Mostly, Susie, I was concerned with medical doctors who can give me a diagnosis or a medicine or a treatment to try to rein this thing in, whatever it was, because it was scary. I didn't know what it was. I probably didn't seek therapy till years into it, to my recollection anyways. I was so consumed with the medical doctors' treatments, diagnoses, and trying to fix it.
And you said, and the information you sent, that probably you saw about 100 specialists over those years.
At least. Yeah. I mean, no, that's not an exaggeration by any means.
So you obviously were determined and probably desperate. What sort of symptoms? I mean, you say you started with mostly fatigue to begin with.
Right.
So what other symptoms then started developing after that?
Yeah, so I think one of the other big symptoms to come on soon after the fatigue and the fibromyalgia and the body-wide stuff was irritable bowel. Right. Irritable bowel syndrome was a really big, the doctors called it functional dyspepsia or non-functional dyspepsia. Basically, they did all the tests, went this way, went the other way, looked all around and couldn't find a problem. So they chalked it up to, well, we don't know why, but you have these symptoms.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's a term for it.
Yeah.
Which didn't make me feel any better. And I remember there were times when for months I was just eating oatmeal because anything else was too upsetting, just made me feel so poorly. And eventually I was put on medication for it, which I resisted, but finally gave in. And then I was on medication for that for years. So that was one thing, but
presumably, sorry to interrupt. Presumably, if you're given a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, then you did have muscular pains as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So that the body wide aches, muscle aches, the fatigue. Yeah. And to be honest, I feel like the fatigue was definitely more overpowering, whereas the aches and pains kind of came and went for me, if that makes sense. I think we all have different levels of intensity, severity, or whatever, because everyone's so different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fatigue was crushing for me, just to, again, have gone from super active, loving fitness and working just to, I'm going to go from the bed to the couch now. And that was kind of it.
Such a limited life.
Right.
You can see how that in itself wouldn't help you with your mental health as well as your physical health.
Yeah. And then, of course, who wouldn't feel depressed or anxious going through that and the tears? And I wish so much I had all this knowledge of how to process all that way back then, but feeling very, very trapped. And is my life over? And at the time I was engaged to my now husband when I got sick. And I just remember the stress it put on us, me feeling guilty that this was not what he signed up for, I don't think. And just that feeling of I can't provide or be that person that he kind of came into this with. So that's a whole other scary factor, just the relationships that you go through.
Huge. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Susie's saying, how old were you when it started?
I was 30 when it started. I will be 50 next year. So around, sorry?
Looking good.
Oh, thank you. Zoom lighting helps. And it was about the 17-year mark when I stumbled on the word mind body. So just to give you an idea of kind of how long the journey was before I even found mind body medicine.
Yeah. And I know, excuse me, you did have lots of other symptoms. And
yes.
You said, for example, you had foot pain. There was one time when I know you were having to be in a wheelchair because the pain in your feet was so bad.
Yes, I call it basically my rock bottom or the pit. I got sick around 2003 and I just, navigated, tried to deal with it, went to specialists. And I do want to just insert one little thing. In 2017, so before I found mind body medicine, it just reminds me of how desperate we get for relief. And I moved away from my husband and my dogs to another state, got an apartment, paid utilities, lived there for 7 months to do a dedicated treatment program, which was daily enemas, colonics, to get all the pathogens, to get all the viruses, the bugs out and flush you clean. And it made rational sense to me. And it was run by it was a Christian business, and I'm a Christian. I have a strong faith, and it seemed like the right fit. And of course, I came back 7 months later to my husband. Both of my dogs had passed in the interim. It was devastating.
Wow.
One I had even taken with me to be my buddy while I was there. And you can imagine that devastation. But
absolutely, wow.
Coming back not only with depleted finances, but more so the emotional impact of I'm in the same situation. And I remember my husband saying, honey, you kind of seem the same as when you left. And I said, yeah, I am.
And then presumably more guilt because of the money that you spent and you're still no further forward. I think that's so common, isn't it? For so many people.
Yeah, just that hopelessness feeling.
Yes.
And so I think you were asking me about the wheelchair. So what I just described was 2017, 2018. And I was just after that trying to, get by day by day. And 2018, I will just be honest and vulnerable because that's what this discussion is for. But I had breast implants prior, and I decided in September 2018 that it was time to get them out because I feared that they could be causing health issues, or to my determination, they weren't helping me get healthier. So let's put it that way.
And I don't think that's a common belief, especially people with chronic fatigue syndrome, where that's the case. Yeah.
Sure. And so that just made it very clear to me, okay, I'm going to get these out and then I will move on with my healing. Well, that surgery in September caused severe external hemorrhoids within 3 days. I went to the gastroenterologist. My mom had to come take care of me through the surgeries. I had to have a second surgery 4 days after the breast explant surgery to remove the hemorrhoids that were caused by the pain meds from the first surgery.
Oh, gosh.
So that I call my rock bottom, the pit. And that was late 2018.
Right. So, gosh. So you certainly had been through it all, and absolutely, as you say, rock bottom with significant number of symptoms as well. Did you find anything helped during this time?
That's such a good question, and other than not to any great degree. So during the whole time from the beginning, I had sleep issues. So I was needing sleep medication. As far as anything helping, there were just so many different medications thrown at me. And especially when I hit rock bottom, which I call the pit, I think doctors were feeling desperate for me. And they were just, well, here's 3 pain meds. Here's a couple, try these for your stomach. But as far as anything helping, nothing really helped except some topical relief, heating pad, some roll-ons, a hot bath, but that was that would just take the edge off here and there.
So most of the time then you were virtually housebound during this time?
Yeah, and I could go out to the store. Some weeks and months, to be honest, were better. Thank God that I felt I could, maybe go out. Sometimes I traveled with my husband, but he would drive. He would drive us, and it was hard to go across the states and see our parents, but we would drive over. And I just remember wanting to partake in all the family stuff with such joy, but it's almost like having to fake it. Like no one can tell anything's wrong with me, but I'm here. Like I can stand up, I can be here, but I'm not fully into the joy of life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Just very sick inside.
So there were times when you could get yourself out of the house and do some things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Susie's saying, did you have any psychological help in the 18 years?
So within those 18 years, I did toward the end, more recently see some therapists. So after I found my body work, I would say as I was coming out of the pit, or maybe when I was in the pit, my husband and parents realized that I needed some kind of help because they were starting to think, not that they thought it was in my head because they didn't, but they were starting to feel maybe talking about it with a professional and working through it would be a help. And so at that point, about 17 years into it, right before the time I found my body, we were starting as a family to push me towards talking to a therapist.
Right.
And I will be very honest, because I just want people to understand and to know I understand what you all are going through. When my mom had come to help take care of me, because my husband had to work, I remember the three of us talking, and my husband and my mom were saying, maybe we need to get you to talk to somebody. And I just remember feeling so afraid that they were going to check me into some kind of facility or something. And I cried. I said, please don't send me off. And they said, no, honey, we're not going to do that. We just want to get you some other kind of help. And I just remember that fear of, just losing control over any life that I had,
Right. Not like you had an awful lot anyway, but
yeah.
Some form of control. So you know how important purpose and meaning is in our life as well. Were you able to, did you have any hobbies, or were there things that you were able to do to keep yourself occupied during this time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Throughout the years, some months and years were definitely harder, and some were a little easier, thank God. During those easier, not as difficult, devastating times, I could walk. Sometimes I always made a priority when my husband came home from work, we would walk the dogs. And even if I had been on the couch all day, because I'm stubborn and determined and I love fitness, I made myself get up and go out with my husband and do that walk, because I knew it would feed my soul in a certain way that I needed. I needed some joy.
Yeah.
So there were times that I could do that. There were times I could go to the gym and do something little, do some little machines or something. There were other times, months and weeks and years, where I was really more so at the house, mostly because I couldn't do those kinds of things. So it was even though I had the chronic fatigue, the fibromyalgia, the IBS, the pain in the feet and everything else, the intensity of it kind of varied throughout my journey, if that makes sense.
Natural, I think, with any condition, isn't it? There are going to be some times that are better than other times. It must have been quite demoralizing when you've been going through a good patch to then hit another bad patch. How did you cope with those?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my Christian faith helped a lot, and I leaned on it. I've been Christian since a baby, and just having that faith and that support, and knowing that I wasn't alone, knowing God is with me, and just my husband, my parents have always been my biggest cheerleader. So I'm very fortunate to have that support system. And then I guess maybe the stubborn part of me is of just always trying to do something. What could I do? There were times when I could do little part-time jobs. And to me, that elevated me and helped me. And when I got too sick at times and I had to quit those jobs, again, going back to my faith and, what can I do? Can I take little walks here and there? It was hard, as we all know.
Have a very strong personality, very determined.
Determined, yeah.
Able to sort of push through all this.
Yeah.
And still be looking for an answer to all this. Linda's saying, I'm sorry you felt like that. I know how hard it must have been. I think it's clear to us all just what a challenging time that must have been over these years. So how did you, was it Curable you came across initially? How did you start coming out of this?
Yes. And if it's okay with you, before I hit that, I just wanted to share where I was right before I found Curable.
Absolutely. Yes.
So in that rock bottom pit, when I had those 2 back-to-back surgeries in late 2018, my mom came to take care of me. It was to the point, Georgie, where I really couldn't get up and fix a meal for myself. So my husband had to work. mean, he couldn't stop working to take care of me. We needed income, obviously. And she was taking care of me. And then I moved. My mom drove me to where they live in North Carolina to see any specialist I could see. So they drove me around to get appointments with rheumatologists. And, Charlotte's a pretty big city in the US, in North Carolina. And I just saw various specialists. And I even somehow got into the Mayo Clinic. It's like a whole application process. It's like trying to get into a college. You have to fill out an application and prove your need to get into this clinic. And so in spring of 2019, that's where that picture of me in the wheelchair, Mom had to drive me. We stayed there for a week while they did every kind of test on me to try and find diagnoses. She had to wheel me around in a wheelchair because at the time, when I was in the pit, I had severe burning through my body as well as on the bottoms of my feet. So I could barely walk from room to room in my house, which meant if I wanted to go out, I had to use like a motorized wheelchair to go to the grocery store, Walmart. And I also remember it was very difficult to drive because the pressure of the bottom of the foot on the pedal was very painful because of the burning sensation.
Yes.
So I was sorry.
You stayed a week then in the Mayo Clinic.
Yes, received the diagnosis again of fibromyalgia, centralized sensitization syndrome, pelvic floor dysfunction. They wanted me to attend their $50,000 pain program, which thankfully I did not. Probably partly because we were getting ready to move. We moved from Alabama over to Texas, where we live now, the next month. And thank God at that time, I stumbled onto Curable on Facebook. I think a Facebook ad, maybe.
Right, probably.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
So my interest was piqued. I was like, oh, this is cool. What is this? I signed up for the free app. Probably like many people, I thought it was really interesting. I dabbled with it a little. And then I found out about curable groups. And we moved to Texas.
Stacey, I'm really sorry. In the middle of all this, I'm going to have to stop for a second because somebody's banging on my door.
Okay.
Door, I'm the only one here.
Okay.
A second.
No problem.
Anybody wants to ask a question?
Let me see if I can answer any questions. I'll look over here at the comments. Hi, Joy. Thank you. Yes, I had implants. What were the reasonings for the surgery? Because I just felt that the breast implants I had had for 8 years. I'm just answering a question, Georgie, from Joy.
You carry on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, she was asking about the reason because I had breast implants and what was the reason for the invasive surgery. And I'll just back up to say that I think like most women, I got the breast implants because I was wanting more, to look a little different. I was wanting to look more curvy. I'm thin and tall, and to be more confident in my body. I wish so much I could go back with the wisdom I have now, but we can't, and never have done that. So, Joy, to answer your question, 8 years into having the breast implants, and at this point I was at 16 years or so into my healing journey or illness, I just realized I don't think it was the best decision to get something foreign into my body, which could be creating some toxins. Possibly it could be making it harder for me to heal. And so I thought the smartest thing for me personally to do is to get those things out. And then I thought I'll have a better chance to heal. My immune system will be stronger. So that was my reasoning behind it, Joy, to go ahead and get those out.
Yeah. Makes sense. Connie Terry is saying, my nephew is experiencing the body feet burning now, and it is quite a common symptom.
Yeah,
Not
it's
nice.
very scary. I do remember, Connie, just days and days, and this is before my mom came to take care of me, where I would just lay on my bed or lay on the couch while my husband worked and just pray and just think, I don't know what to do, and call my mom and cry, call my mother-in-law and cry, because it's scary. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And doctors are kind of like, not sure. Here's some Lyrica. Here's some gabapentin.
And hard for them when they don't understand this, because, you know, generally most doctors, therapists are in this position to actually help people, and it can be
Right.
challenging for them if they can't. Hence, we need to get all this out there to everybody, for the medical world and therapists to understand as well.
And I've heard from, let's just say, a number of doctors that I've stumped them. It's never something you want to hear from a doctor who you're going to for help, for relief, that they don't know what to do for you. That they're stumped and they don't have any more solutions. Well, that stinks.
It does. You know, you start losing your own hope, and hope's what you need. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving forward then, you became interested in the Curable, joined one of the groups.
Yes.
I think for many people, it's even just feeling like there's hope there can make such a big difference. And clearly you started getting that when you came across there with quite your interest.
Yes, I think it was August it's a 12-week program, so August to November, whatever, of 2019, and doing the Curable group there's 10 people in a group, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, and moving through with those same 10 people together and learning some of the mind-body neuroscience basics about fear and pain and what's happening in the brain and why is that happening, and looking at the need for boundaries. That was new to me. I'm like, a boundary? What's a boundary? So just learning the basics, I call it, through Curable groups. And like you said, Georgie, having hope that this could help me. This could be, oh my goodness, this could be a solution. Like, that was almost too scary to put hope in that, but it did make sense too.
And I think that also is a common thing, that it is scary to allow yourself to hope, because what if you let down once again? And same thing, if you start feeling better, you know, well, you felt better a bit before, so you're only going to fall back again. Yes, it takes some time and work on yourself to actually start believing that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it does. And just a reminder to anybody still going through the process, and granted, we're all, I think this is the lifelong process for all of us, but those that are in deeper symptoms, sometimes it's a process. Sometimes it's a walkout. Sometimes you learn this information and you practice it and it's daily, and you're looking for those little changes. And sometimes they're really little changes. Sometimes it's a very gradual process and not something where you see relief or a huge change in 6 months. It might take a year or two, because for me, it was a very gradual walkout, and there's still things that I'm using my tools for. So I want to encourage people that please don't be discouraged if it's like, I've been doing this for 2 months or 6 months. Like, what the heck?
Yes.
It can take a bit.
It can. And even when, you know, people talk about cure, you know, what is the cure anyway? Because, you know, yes, we're helping people resolve their symptoms, but this is the human experience, is the mind and body working together.
Right.
And what human doesn't have the odd symptom, and especially when things are stressful? So the more we work on our old patterns, our old learned behaviors, our personality, the way we go through life, the more chance we have, and becoming emotionally aware and really being able to start acknowledging the emotions rather than just pushing through life, which actually, going back to your start, and you said you were rushing through life and, you know, active all the time, and presumably when you started coming across this work, you began to realize maybe you could talk about it now, looking back now, why do you think you ended up in the position you did?
I feel very strongly that most of my TMS, mind body symptoms are linked to my personality traits. That might not be a shock to people that know me. I claimed myself as a perfectionist. I was proud of it. I wore that title well, and always striving to get the best grades and the magna cum laude in college. And, you know, it goes on and on. And
Busy.
yeah. And when I was a bit discouraged though, when I found mind body work and TMS, and I thought, I don't have any big traumas. And I'm not saying that I'm upset that I did not have big traumas. Please don't hear me say that. But many people had big traumas that they could easily link the mind body syndrome to. And I had to dig a bit. I thought my parents are still together. I had a good childhood. I was digging for problems in my childhood that I could not find. But the personality traits, spot on, type T, avoid conflict, super perfectionistic, all those things. And I really have no doubt that it's those things that we've learned, that I learned through my walk in life, that I thought I had to be very good or perfect in order to be accepted, approved of. And it's kind of sad to hear myself say that, but it's a learning process.
Absolutely. And it's quite normal when, in fact, normal, so to speak. The book, Gabor Mate's new book, The Myth of Normal, talks a lot about this, about, being all the normal ways that we live our lives. It's expected that people are busy, that we won't take holidays, or even the way pregnant women are treated, or when they have the baby, or how we train our children to behave, or the way the school system is. This is all what's apparently normal, but actually we're all very different, and therefore growing up, when we're trying to conform to all these expectations, cultural, family, etc., of course that's going to then impact who we become as we get older. But as you say, it can be quite challenging to, I think it can be helpful to understand, once we understand that, to start understanding why we are who we are. But then not to constantly harp back to, well, it's because of this, because actually this approach is about looking at, okay, I've been triggered. Why have I been triggered? Acknowledging how we're feeling. And the more we're actually dealing with how we're feeling in the moment, the more we're starting to unravel the neural pathways and everything that ended up with us like that, the behaviors that we ended up being like this.
And I think that's a good point. Acknowledging, really just stopping to, part of this journey is, I remember the very first time when I was about to have a difficult conversation with my husband, and I felt a swoosh go through my body of fatigue and weakness. And I thought, wow, cool. Like, I'm about to have a really hard conversation. Oh, my mind body is kicking in. They're like, here's a symptom, that's scary. But the other thing I was about to say, that awareness, but with that awareness comes the responsibility and the knowledge that we get to make a choice. As we move through this journey, we get to make a choice on, we're not a victim to our thoughts. We're not a victim to our circumstances. Instead, we get to redirect our thoughts. We get to reframe our situation. We get to look at it in another light. We get to choose what we think on, and we're not subject to life. We're not, life isn't happening to us. We get to make things happen. And I think that's an important perspective shift that we all need to take.
I think that's a very important point to make, Stacey, because I think, this is about self-empowerment, isn't it? And it is about recognizing we have a choice now. So yes, it's about thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, emotions. I love that you say you felt that whoosh going through your body. That is a wonderful learning opportunity. When people have a challenging day, or they suddenly have a symptom, rather than going back into the feeling the victim to what's happening to them, to be able to pause, be mindful, be aware, notice how they're feeling, then start acknowledging, expressing what's going on. That's so important, and that can then help desensitize these neural circuits that are triggering us.
That it's okay. Like, oh, okay, that happened. Like, no big deal. I got spooked.
Yeah.
And
wow, that's interesting. And having that curiosity and interest in it rather than going into the fear. I think that's
right. Instead of freaking out, can I just be like, oh, that is interesting. It's my mind body's doing exactly what it knows to do to protect me.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so let's go into some of these questions then. Or actually, Joy, first of all, she says, thank you. Weirdly, I'm reacting right now about an exorcism. And this was about abuse. Not sure what you mean by that, but
I'm not sure.
Not the same, I know, but more power to you now, Stacey, standing on your own. There you go. Linda says, I'm a bit nervous about groups because hearing about other people's pain affects me, but it sounds as though it wasn't like that. And yeah, there are definitely people will feel that, can feel that, and the more of an empath you are and a high sensitive person, the more you are likely to feel like that.
Right.
But I think the other thing is that in a group situation in this field, ideally we shouldn't be talking about symptoms or pain, talking about pain. Was it one group that worked with us decided that rather than when they wanted to explain something about a symptom they had, they would call it a Scooby, because then that didn't matter whether your symptom was a migraine, back pain, anxiety, whatever, it was a Scooby, because it's silly. I
like that.
Scooby-Doo, it's just a silly
term. Not triggering.
It's not triggering. And a patient of mine I worked with had tinnitus, and the word tin, she said, was like scraping her nails down a board. Ooh. And so she called it Tinkerbell. And just calling her tinnitus Tinkerbell was just so de-triggering for her.
Right.
Because it wasn't a fearful thing, and she started being able to think of it more as her inner child crying out for help.
Right.
I think that's the important thing, Linda, is to make sure that people aren't just talking about the impact on their life, but groups should hopefully be talking, and presumably this was the case with you, Stacey, and it's certainly the case with the groups that we run. This is about looking at what can you do, how can you become more emotionally aware, how you can deal with different things. It's not talking about the trauma. It's not talking about how the pain's affecting your life, etc.
Right. Yes. And for me, Curable Groups was really like a launching pad. It opened up all the information about, pain education and neuroscience. And then I just got excited. I wasn't seeing change yet, but I just started delving into Sarno's books and Ozanich. I had a call with Steve Ozanich, and I listened to Dr. Hanscom and did Alan Gordon's Wiki 21 Days, and just, watching your stuff, Georgie, and just getting, who can I get tidbits from to start to learn more and internalize it.
And when you're hearing it in different ways, you're picking up insights, aren't you?
Right.
Same information, if it's said in a different way, you might have heard it 10 times, but then that last time it can suddenly be, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that can
the light bulb.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got some more. I don't know who this is, Innate Wisdom, Mind Body Mentor. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability, Stacey. I've had my own healing journey using mind body practices and Curable after trying everything. That's wonderful.
Yay, Trace.
Yeah. And Linda, do you have an aha moment when you thought, yes, this is what's going on? Good question there, Linda.
Yeah, good question.
Everybody gets aha moments, but yes, people do.
I don't know if it was a specific moment, but the best way I can answer your question is that as I started to, like I said, listen to all the various TMS experts and educate myself and teach myself the tools and start applying them, I started seeing little progresses in what I could do that was more than, 3 months prior. So doing a little bit of yard work with my husband, just doing little things like that started to show me this was working. And although it was scary to put my hope in it, at the same time, I thought, I'm changing. Things are starting to work and I'm seeing little progresses. So I was starting to get sold on it. It was a little bit of a progress, but as I started to see little things I could do around my house, my yard, my, things I could do with my family, it started to become evident. But it wasn't one moment. It was a series of little ahas.
It's important that, and in fact, we encourage people to write those down on an evidence sheet so that gradually builds up your belief. So if you're having a bad day, you can actually pick that up and look at, well, I could do this and I haven't been able to do it for ages or whatever.
And I still keep an evidence journal, Georgie, and I started it 3.5 years ago. And I love to go back and look at what was on the list of what was a success of maybe walking 15 minutes. And now I can do anything I want for however long I want. But it's such a wonderful written record of how far you've come. And that's important to us for our nervous system.
Absolutely. And we know beliefs are so important. So that really helps reinforce your beliefs, which so no wonder things just gradually then started improving from moving forward. Fantastic. Yes. So Lucinda says, did you laugh at fear thoughts? Also, are our inner patterns the same as learned neural pathways? So did you laugh at your fear thoughts, Stacey?
I don't know if I laughed at them. At some points, probably initially, no. Probably initially it was just like coddling my nervous system, like, you're okay, like talking to it like a child, and it's okay, I got you, like, you're safe. And as I've gotten farther into the mind-body journey and made healing progress, now it's easier to laugh, because like that instance I told you, Georgie, where I felt that whoosh and I was like, whoa, that is cool, because you see your mind and body interacting to produce this protective mechanism. And you're like, oh, I see what you're doing, like, whatever. And now it is easier. I see what you're doing, symptom, whatever. If you want to be there, back pain, fine. But I'm going to go do this, do what you will. And I'm going to go live my life. Granted, it's not always that easy, but that mindset is what I'm talking about. Like, whatever, if you want to be there, symptom.
So just sort of letting it go. And I think, if somebody's in real fear, then laughing at it is going to be very hard.
Right.
Just actually feeling that fear, and then self-soothing, rationalizing would be a better approach.
Yes. Agree.
So you're saying, where was I? Oh yeah. Are our inner patterns the same as learned neural pathways? Well, neural pathways, neural circuits are just neural responses throughout the body. They could be part of thoughts, they can be part of learned behaviors, it could be a pain pattern. It's reactions, neural reactions, basically. So yes, inner patterns, like for example, learned behaviors are all neural circuits. There's neural circuits involved in those, and they're automatic and unconscious. So I would say yes, basically.
Yeah.
Linda, did you have a coach, Stacey? What were you doing differently day to day?
So for coach wise, at one point I dabbled with the Pain Psychology Center. And I say dabbled because I think I had maybe 5 sessions. But I got to the point where I had immersed myself so much in all of the TMS education, all the tools, that I was not getting benefit from the sessions. I kind of knew what I was being told and taught on the sessions, so that it did not benefit me. I believe they're a fantastic help to many people. So I just decided to keep doing what I knew to do. And then fortunately, when I looked for a psychotherapist, the one, I think I interviewed a couple on the phone, but the one I went with just happened to know, even though she wasn't a TMS specialist, mind body specialist, she specialized in chronic pain. I think that was one of the filters why I chose her, so she would understand. And she just understood the mind body connection. So even though I didn't have a specialized mind body coach per se, she took that role a little bit and helped me just to understand, emotional processing and stuff.
Great. Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. And what were you doing differently day to day?
Not sure what different from.
Yeah.
From what?
Okay. So let me put a question to you. What are you doing differently day to day now from what you were doing before you ended up with chronic fatigue? How do you live your life any differently?
You mean before I got sick or when I was sick?
I don't know what Linda's meaning in this,
okay.
so I'm rephrasing it to say, looking at your life pre getting ill and now having much better understanding of why you became ill. How do you live your life differently now? I don't know if that's what you're asking Linda, but let's go with this for now.
That's a great question. So, before I got sick, it was, I would say I was a little bit, I don't want to say self-centered, but I just was in my world of, okay, go to work out, do fun things. But now that I've been through this journey and now that I'm very much on the other side, but still using my tools for a couple little things, there's just so much more. Now, of course, I get to help people with what I went through. And that's bigger than anything, because that was my constant prayer to God. Please help me to use this for good. And so grateful for that. But also with this journey comes the knowledge that this process never ends. And so I will tell you that I take care of myself and I do more self-care and I weave it into my day now as part of my day. So I don't know, say maybe 3:00 in the middle of the afternoon, I will go to the spare room, get all cozy in a blanket, do a meditation, do some deep breathing, meditate on a scripture, and really just shut the world out. Whereas before, I never would have realized, like, I need to do these things proactively before the stress of whatever's going on in my family or work just forces me to have downtime and end up in bed.
Doing, aren't they? Making you stop. So, So basically more self-care and presumably more understanding of your personality and how that can create stress. Because the other thing that I was going to mention before is so many people say, well, this is my personality, I can't change. Well, you can. When you become aware of, for example, the fact that being a perfectionist creates a lot of stress, then when you start, especially when you become more somatically aware and aware, even without a whoosh in the body, just aware of a tension or whatever, and you know that that's you being a perfectionist, then you can actually just pause, allow yourself to feel how you're feeling, acknowledge it, rationalize, look at what you could do to actually simplify things, or is it good enough, and move forward.
Yeah, and just like the perfectionist thing, super quick example, and you all will probably laugh at this, but I asked my husband a couple of nights ago, hey, will you cut up this pineapple? It needs cut up. And he started doing it, and I walked over, I was like, honey, you got to cut off the hard part. Like, it's not good to have a piece where the hard center's still on it. And I almost said, here, just let me do it. And I was like, no, step back. He's doing this. You don't need to control everything. And I just walked away, which sounds silly, but that's how we incorporate. That's how we stop doing everything ourselves and being in control.
Absolutely. So learning to let go and not having to be in control all the time. Absolutely. So Linda says, yes, that's what she meant. How do you approach day-to-day life problems differently from the way you did before when it was making you ill? And I think a lot of that is becoming much more emotionally aware, aware when there's been a trigger, whether that's, I often say if somebody has migraines, we're aware that often people will have auras before the migraine. So that's great. So work on that before you get to the migraine. But before the aura, there will be an emotional trigger. And if we can work with that, then we don't need the aura, which then makes it easier and we don't need it to the migraine. And that's just about migraines. But, if you open an email or a WhatsApp or somebody doesn't get back to me or whatever, it's about beginning to be much more aware of when emotions have been triggered and then dealing with them then, rather than actually just ignoring it all and pushing through and just forgetting it and whatever, because we know bite us on the bum later on.
For sure. If you don't deal with it, it will come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Connie says, how does mind body work for someone who is on meds for anxiety and depression? Well, anxiety and depression, we would say, is a mind body condition. It's a mental health condition, but it's still mind body, and so this work will still help.
Same tools. Yeah.
Same tools, and it's about starting to get starting to feel some control over the symptoms, and then gradually reducing the medication when you feel ready to, rather than just getting rid of it, because that's probably not going to help. Partly with the nocebo effect of fearing that if you stop the tablets, the pain or the anxiety will increase, and it does, because that's what you believe. So,
right.
Have you got anything else you can say about that, Stacey?
No, I just agree that, and we've seen over and over, Georgie, where people will have pain go away and then anxiety comes in or depression comes in, and it is just the brain saying, here's another symptom. It's just another manifestation than pain, and a symptom is a symptom is a symptom to the brain. Often it doesn't
same
make
process.
a difference.
Absolutely. So Lucinda says, does the subconscious resist healing for a while? I'm going to pass the
Yes. Well, the brain, the nervous system doesn't like change. The brain resists change. And so I often describe the brain as a child that needs patience and coddling, and no, it's okay. This is the way we're going to do it. And, I'm in control, not you. Like, I've got this. And the brain likes to go back to what it knows. And so it knows these old neural pathways of pain and of symptoms. So even though often we might feel relief or make progress, sometimes our nervous system will go, are you sure? Are you sure you don't need this symptom? Here you go. And then we again have to go, no, it's okay. Like, calm down. Like, I'm in control, not you. And it's okay, nervous system, limby, whatever you call it. So
until
definitely.
It learns the new pathway. And you keep practicing that pathway until that then takes over. But you don't get rid of the other ones. They're dormant. But then if you face a significant stressor or something, then that can be triggered again. But it's that not going then back into the fear.
Right.
As well. And when you were talking about that, it just made me remember that film, and somebody will know it. The film with the little girl, and it's the emotions of the little girl. And the producer wrote this film based on his teenage daughter. And you've got the control room of her mind on the film, and they're following anger and joy. And have you not seen it?
Oh, wow.
It's fabulous. And somebody write it down, please. I'm sure.
So I can look it up.
I keep saying I'd like to watch it again. But, okay, so Lucinda, what's your view that Dan? Whoops, just moved. What's your view? Lost. Sorry, it's all.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. It's all moved.
What's your view that Dan Buglio and David Hanscom say don't go to the past, whereas yourself, Georgie, Les, Nicole Sachs, Howard say do go to the past?
Okay. So first of all, David Hanscom does now acknowledge going to the past. Okay. And he's now talking about journaling. He promotes James Pennebaker's work, who's studied journaling for years and years and years. So he does now. I don't know about Dan, haven't been in touch with Dan about this work for quite some years. And it's not necessarily about talking about the past. It's about working on the body now when it's triggering past things. So this is why now in the trauma field, all the talk now is about somatic work. And really using a somatic therapy rather than talk therapy, because that then addresses what's going on in the body. And so, for example, if you're talking about being triggered in the moment now, and you have a response in your body, then you say, well, when have you had that feeling before? And often we are aware that that's actually, how old is that feeling? something you've experienced as a child. So there are lots of therapies now that help with all this without actually going into talking about past experiences. So whether that's internal family systems, embodied processing, somatic experiencing, but very much the trauma field talk about somatic work now. So I hope that at least answers that. So Linda says, yeah, we read Linda, sorry. Tamara, did you find you had to use the same approach to pain and fatigue? I find pain easy to understand, but when fatigue comes, it's harder to fix.
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that, Tamara, if I'm saying your name right. I found fatigue, you're right. I found it more crushing than the pain. For some reason, sometimes pain, you can be like, whatever, I am doing this, but fatigue can tend to lay you down, just like, boom, you're down and you're out. And I am not exaggerating when I say it was probably one of the hardest things I learned to do in my life was when my brain was telling me I had to be in the bed, I had to be on the couch, I had to stay home, I had to be in a ball, that I couldn't do things. Beginning to challenge my body and my brain and my nervous system, it was like forcing it. But I felt empowered to do so because I have this knowledge, and I listened and watched so many other people with the same symptoms recover. So I took that belief and I thought, if they can do it, so can I. But I won't lie, it was one of the hardest things I had to do. One quick example is a couple summers ago when my husband, we have a pool, and he said, I'm going out to the pool, you want to come? And I thought to myself, I can't. Like, I don't know if I can get off the bed. And I gave myself a pep talk and I said, yes, you can. Put your suit on. You can go 20 feet. You can go get in the pool. Maybe you'll find some joy. Maybe you'll laugh with your husband if you feel the same way. At least you're out there, maybe having some joy and trying to get your brain to get this message. And it was like instance after instance over and over of different things like that, where my brain said, don't do it, don't get up. And I said, no, we're doing this. I have to teach my brain that it's safe. So it's hard.
And it will be harder because pain comes with the fight or flight response, where it's actually reacting to a threat. So there's tension, there's pain. The fatigue is more a primal response to threat to life. So that is making, shut down, just completely, not even just freeze, but completely shut down. So it is going to be harder. And it's about really being kind to yourself. And like you say, finding moments of joy, finding ways that you can then move forward with it. But it's, as you've shown, Stacey, it is possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to briefly go through these because we are over time now. Inside Out, Linda, thank you. So the film is called Inside Out.
I'm going to jot that down.
And Lucinda, you're right. We're talking about processing past emotions, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to talk about, but it's actually helping your body process those.
Right.
Joy, this is lovely. Joe says, I sense that you now know yourself, Stacey, and your body is happier.
Yep. Very much.
And Lucinda, it seems to take a long time to teach the brain and emotions are safe. Was that your experience, Stacey? And again, I would say this varies from people to person. It really does vary.
Yeah, it was for me. And I remember talking to my therapist a few years back. And when I relayed that first instance where I had that whoosh and I could recognize it, I said, why did that happen now, but never before? And she explained it. I think you just had so much repressed emotion. You were just stuck so much in that flight, freeze, shut down, that you hadn't even had a chance to dip down out of it, that I was just stuck in it. So as I continued to do the work and my body, my nervous system would come down a little at a time, finally I went under the threshold and I could experience that mind-body reaction. And it just took those repeated, using those tools over and over, day by day, where I continued to bring it down little by little.
Great. And I think the other thing is that when people are in their heads a lot, overthinking, overanalyzing,
Yes.
trying hard, desperate, or whatever, that's up here. You are,
Yep.
that's where your focus is. You know, think about it. You know, when you remember a past event, everybody remembers it differently. When
Yeah.
you look at a photograph, you'll see different things. We don't see everything. And if we're so focused on what's going on in our heads, we're not going to be aware of what's going on in our bodies. And that's why
Right.
part of this is actually really starting to learn to understand what our body is saying to us.
Yeah.
And that's feeling the emotions as well as noticing other sensations that are going on that we can then respond to.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Stacey. It has been really interesting. As Connie
Thank
says,
you.
very helpful conversation. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your great questions as well. It's been really good.
Thank you so much for having me. I just loved answering questions, and thank you, Georgie, for the amazing work that you continue to do.
And thank you, Stacey. And we will put the link to your website as well at the bottom, because of course you are a mind body coach as well. You did
Great.
get what you really wanted to do.
Thank you.
So fantastic. And I know that you're bound to be helping a lot of people as well with your work.
Yes.
Especially with your experiences. So thank you, everybody. Bye. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.